Hi, this is Derek, and I just want to get on here today to talk a little bit about AI coding tools. There's been a lot of interest, I think, across the tech industry right now with how well AI is writing code. And there's a bunch of different new tools that are emerging, or also known as integrated development environments, IDEs, that enable developers to write code faster. And this is also kind of spilling over into uh, allowing normies, what we call normies, people who can't necessarily write code or are not trained in computer science, to now develop apps very quickly. So there's a few ones out there, Microsoft Copilot, Cursor.ai, Bolt.new, Replit, Lovable, a whole host of others. And so these are just some really amazing platforms that are using the best of different AI models to enable people to write code. And these tools are super compelling. And I've been doing some kind of deep dives with different platforms. Myself, I've actually settled on Cursor.ai. I've found its guidance like really, really helpful and very powerful. And the code that it's writing is quite accurate. However, you still have to babysit. You have to babysit it quite a bit. I'll get into this in a little bit, but I just wanted to rewind a little bit. Over the past like 4 to 5 years, there's been kind of a proliferation of what we call low code tools. These allow, again, just like maybe designers or developers who might have been like your Visual Basic or Microsoft Access developers in the past, or maybe these are even just front-end web developers who can now develop full-on applications or even full-stack web apps. And so Microsoft had come up with its Power Apps platform. Salesforce had acquired a number of different companies such as MuleSoft, AirKit. Google acquired a small company called AppSheets that's now part of its Google Workspaces. And there's a host of other kind of boutique ones too, Bubble, Good Barber, etc. And these are all amazing tools. And there was a race by these big tech companies to kind of provide these platforms so that IT departments and different contract developers, et cetera, to quickly develop business apps. And so the one thing I want to kind of point out with regard to, I think a lot of people's excitement about these AI tools is that, they're thinking like, hey, this is just going to enable, kids to write apps in 2 days and things like that. And that is somewhat true, but you have to keep in mind of the different types of apps that are out there. So there's basic business forms and workflow apps. There's just data dashboard kind of apps. There's native OS apps. So for example, if you want to write an app for the iPhone and you want to have widgets on the lock screen, you have to be writing that in Swift. And you have to actually be using API calls to Apple's UI kits and things like that to enable that. You can't do that from a generic coding or low code platform. And then you have full stack apps, which we're kind of used to, right, with like say Amazon or any kind of like content creator platform like YouTube or whatever. These are very complex, or Uber. These are very complex systems with real-time, capabilities and databases, high performance databases, and web front ends and app front ends, and et cetera. So that's a whole nother ball game. So I think, when it comes to these AI tools, the speed at which people are going to be able to develop these apps depends on the complexity of the apps. And so I kind of want to just point that out because I think sometimes we get a little too excited about the capabilities when in fact they might be good at doing small scale, platform independent business apps for now, or simple games or things like that. But it's a whole different thing when you're talking about, trying to replicate Uber, et cetera. I think we'll get there, And I think there's going to be a race to be able to provide those kind of capabilities with these AI coding tools. And so I think that that's very, very exciting. However, today, I think today, if you were using the tools such as Microsoft Copilot, you still have to know a ton about software engineering. um, so I've been a product manager, UX designer, user researcher for pretty much my entire career. As I've said, I've spent some quality time with the tools here recently to kind of determine what they can do. I'm minored in computer science. I know coding. I've studied developers for 10 plus years. I've been around software development my entire life. So you have to have some level of knowing what the tech stacks are in order to really utilize these tools to their maximum benefit. And you have to be able to kind of call BS on the code that it's writing. So for example, I was writing an iOS app here this last week, and in Swift, Cursor was creating a struct data structure, and I was getting build errors from the compiler. And I had to look at the code and go, what's going on here? And then I was realizing that struct really should have been a class. And so I instructed the AI to, hey, this struct should be a class. Please change the code. And it did. And I resolved the build error and the app function normally. So again, if you don't have that kind of computer science training or know the Swift language or the toolkit for Apple, for example, the tools aren't going to help you as much right now. You need to be able to call BS and babysit how it's coding. However, the code that it's writing definitely, again, for me, exceeds my ability to write that code, which is amazing, because now it's like, for me, having a real expert software architect mentor who's writing code for me as I say, hey, can we do this? And yes, it can do it, and it can write the code. It's freaking amazing. And again, as we often say in AI, like, this is as bad as it's going to get right now. So in that sense, it's like very, very super exciting. And so I think what's interesting too about these tools that I've been thinking about as a designer, kind of going into coding now, like formally, is that we have developers who have now been generating designs, and then they may not need designers because they can just describe what they want and have the front end built for them automatically based on, all the web pages and things that are available out there. And that's pretty cool and time saving, and like, that's awesome. But I think now what's going to happen is designers like me, who are a little bit more tech savvy and we know how to code, now we can actually be software developers too. And so this is going to create some really interesting cross currents in the tech industry. And I think it's going to create some really powerful teams in software. We've been seeing that the big tech companies have been laying tens of thousands of people off. And of course, some of this is from their investment in AI. This is shifting of priorities to AI. But the kind of, I guess, side effect of that is we're now going to have a bunch of people out there who have the head knowledge and now can create software on their own. And I think of the company Telegram, the messaging app, that has 950 million monthly active users, and they only have 30 employees. And I think that kind of company now is going to be normal. In fact, I really think that we may even see much smaller teams, like teams fewer than 10, like 5 to 10. Those teams are going to be creating very powerful platforms that can change the world in significant ways. So that's just a kind of a quick rundown of my own experience with these tools. And so I kind of wanted to encourage you all, if you are more tech savvy and want to give them a go, even if you haven't coded before or you've been learning a bit, I definitely say give it a try. I tried Replit a little bit. I just spent a little bit more time with Cursor and liked it better. But I've heard that Replic's better for people who have never coded before. Cursor and Copilot are more well-suited to people who have coded before. Bolt.new, I did a very large prompt to create, again, a full stack web app, and it was able to generate the framework for it and all the to-dos. And so I'm going to be kind of fleshing that out more as well. So that Bolt looks very capable as well. And I'd love to hear from you as you've experienced some of these AI coding tools and what you think some of the strengths are of the different platforms and different models that you're using, because some of them you can actually switch the AI model within the integrated development environment. So let me know how that's going. I'd love to compare notes. And those are my quick thoughts for today on AI coding.